Welcome to my kitchen. I'm Rachel Simonson. I serve as the gift planner for the St. John's Foundation in Billings, Montana. And when I'm not cooking up fantastically efficient tax plans for our donors, I am at home in my own kitchen, hopefully cooking up fantastically efficient dinners for myself and my husband. Today we're going to talk about breaking down a whole chicken. Like you, I have gone to the grocery store in the last couple of weeks and realized the only thing there is a whole chicken. All of the parts have been scooped up. Breaking down a chicken can be intimidating, but let's take a look at how to make it easier so that you can have the cuts that you want for your family. We're going to talk first of all about chicken safety. First things first, start with a clean surface. Start with clean hands. Chicken can carry salmonella. Not often will you get one with a salmonella, but just better to take precautions. So make sure you have plenty of soap and water on hand and some fresh towels. Also, we're going to be using some sharp knives today. The sharper your knives, the better. It'll make this job a whole lot easier. But cutting boards can tend to slip around a little bit, so I'm going to use just some shelf liner and set that on my counter underneath my cutting board. Now, I have a variety of cutting boards. This is just an acrylic cutting board. I'm going to use it because it is more easily sanitized when I'm all done. Don't use a wooden cutting board for your chicken. That will just keep all that bacteria in the pores of the wood. So now that my board is secure, I'm going to show you what tools I'm going to use. The most important tool is a pair of kitchen shears. This one happens to come apart. If you don't have a pair of kitchen shears, use a sharp, heavy-duty scissor. The other thing I'm going to use are a couple of knives. I'm going to start with a knife about 5 to 6 inches long. I wouldn't use a paring knife. You're not going to have as much control at the tip with a paring knife as you would with this knife. I'm going to use a larger knife. This is not a chef's knife. This is a 7-inch utility knife. I'm going to use this to cut through the breasts when I need that. So when I need long cuts, I'm going to use this knife. But for most of our work today, I'm going to use the kitchen shears and this smaller knife. All right, we're positioned now. I'm going to grab one of our chickens. I've already dried it off. You don't have to wash your chicken. That's a myth. You don't have to do that. But it is good to dry it off so that you don't end up slipping around with this chicken. Now there's a couple of things you need to know. This chicken is on the package said it came with its giblets and its neck. I love that because, well, here's the neck. It's only part of a neck, but I'm going to put that in a pot and roast it later on. I will actually show you what I'm going to do with that, but don't ever throw these parts away because you can make your own chicken stock. Also going to take a peek inside the chicken, and there are more parts. Sometimes they come with parts in a bag. I know this is gross. If you don't like this part, use some rubber gloves, some latex gloves. But this is the liver or the heart. It's the liver. I don't want that in my soup. I am going to toss that. But if you are the type of person that likes those things, that makes a wonderful chicken pate. You can find those recipes online. Oh, look, there's a second liver. Bonus for those who like those sorts of things. I don't like that, so out it goes. And I'm guessing there's a heart in here somewhere too. There it is. Some people love this, not me. I toss that. All right, so now we're ready to go with this chicken. This chicken, this is the back of the chicken. It walks around on its legs like this, and it's got its little wings up here. First thing I'm going to do is get rid of the wings. These don't always cook up the best, so I'm going to also save these for my stock pot. These make amazing stock. What happens is the bone breaks down and becomes all gelatinized, and your stock will be thick and rich. So I'm just going to get rid of the wings to use for later. See how easily I can just cut right through those wings? All right, now my chicken is on his back. First thing I want to do is remove the backbone. Here it is. There's the cavity, the back end of the chicken. And we're just going to cut down either side of the spine. I could go from either end. This end's got a little handle for me to grab onto, so I like to go from that end first. This is where having those kitchen shears makes a huge difference because you are cutting through the ribs. And with a knife, that is challenging at times. So I'll just snip away, and I'm going to turn it over because I'm right-handed, so it helps to go up the right side of the chicken. And there are those ribs. All right, free of backbone, a spineless chicken. I'm also going to throw this in the stock pot. This too, there's very little meat on it. It's not worth cooking and trying to pick the meat off of it, so we put it in the stock pot and we will make broth and soup off of it later. Oh look, I found another innard. This is the gizzard. That's a really interesting part of the chicken. If you wanted to find out what the gizzard does, just go online. I think it grinds up the little rocks and pieces of crud that chickens are known to eat. So here we are, the inside portion of the chicken. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this little fat pack near the leg section. Just taking my scissor and snipping away at that wad of fat. It doesn't really bring much to the party when you're cooking the chicken. And if there are any sort of pieces along your cut line, just clean those up too. Okay, now we have got a chicken that if you wanted to stop right here and cook your chicken whole this way, it's a really efficient way to cook a chicken. It's called spatchcocking the chicken. And we just would have 2 more steps to do. And so I'm going to do that for you right now. What I need to do is to break the connection between the 2 breast halves. I'm going to put the heel of my hand on that breast, and I'm just going to push down until I hear it give a good crack. Just like that. All right, so I have broken that connection between the 2 breasts. There's also the wishbone right in here. If I wanted to get this out of here, I could sure do that. In fact, I'll just give it another little snip with my scissor. I just stuck it right in the corner here, that crevice, and just give it a good crack. Now your chicken is going to lay flat. See how that keel bone just broke right in half? Turn it over. You've got a nice flat chicken. The other thing I'm going to do is create 2 tiny little slits so that I can slip the legs right in there, and they'll tuck in and everything will cook at the same time. You've got a nice flat chicken and it will cook evenly. So what I do with that is I grab my knife and I find the spot that I think that the chicken leg will fit through, and I just make a slit. You don't have to make a big slit, but just enough to feed this leg through. And my chicken's got a double layer of skin here, so we'll make it just a little bit bigger. There we go. Get my finger through it, and I'm just going to feed the chicken leg right through that skin. It's a little slippery. Sometimes you just have to be patient with it. It'll go. There we go. See how that tucks in there? Just nicely. I'm going to do it on the other side. There we go. Okay. That is a spatchcocked chicken. I'm going to pat it dry. And now it's ready to be seasoned however you like to season it. Just lay it out on a sheet pan. Make sure you season both sides. We'll come back and we'll do that in another video. But your chicken is now ready to cook. All right, so let's start over with another whole chicken. And let's do the whole thing over again. All right, here I am with my chicken. Let's go see what's inside this one. Same deal, a couple of livers, the heart, some kidneys. You never know what's in these chickens. They're not all uniform. This one doesn't appear to have a neck. That's unfortunate, but we'll survive without the neck. First step again, take off these wings. And all I'm doing is in this fleshy portion, I'm just sticking my scissor right in the crevice there. And there's a bone connection here. And I'm just cutting right through it. Really simple. You can tell where that is. There's a knuckle. Just like on your finger, there's a knuckle. You can feel it. It's right there. Some people might cut down through the knuckle first just to see where it is. I think that's a little dangerous because you've got a knife really close to your finger. Probably not the best idea. That's why I love these kitchen shears. So we'll just cut through that again. And there goes the wing. Backbone, again. Here's my little tail end. I'm going to use that as the handle and go up the side of the spine. For some of you, this may be a little off-putting to crack through bones like that. It's okay. Just keep going. You'll get over it. Before too long, it might actually become therapeutic. It's very satisfying to know that you're making progress getting through those bones. It's also a really good exercise for your hands. There we go. All right, second backbone in the stock pot. All right, so here we are again with that chicken. Again, if I'm going to break this down into pieces, I want to make it as easy as possible for myself. So I do actually come in and cut through this keel bone. If you've ever eaten a whole chicken breast, the two halves together, there's this cartilage right in the middle of the two, and comes to a little point right here. I want to cut through that just so that I'm not struggling with a chicken that wants to roll around. So here we go. Stick my knife in at the base, snap through that bone, and then I want to be careful that I don't cut into the meat, that I just cut through the bone. A little easier said than done, but you can tell when you're cutting bone versus meat. There, and every time I make a snip up towards this direction, I want to come a little higher with my bottom blade of my scissor, just so I don't cut into that precious meat. And there we go. I have separated the two breasts, just like that. So when we go to actually cut the breast off this thing, it's going to come off in a really nice, clean fashion. I'm just going to trim up the chicken again on the inside of the bird, just getting rid of this fat. Whenever I do this, I kind of wish I could lift up my own skin and sometimes trim off a little bit of fat and put it back together, and that would be fun, but not realistic. Okay, so now I've got a cleaned up chicken on the inside. I'm going to flip it over. And I'm going to start by removing the thigh and the leg. So for this, I'm actually going to come in with my knife to make a really clean cut. And I'm just going to cut through that skin, lifting it up from the bottom and just following the natural way that that thigh wants to fall. And once you get it going, you really can just cut right through this baby. And take your time. Now, you'll see that there's all this excess skin right here, and the thigh and the leg are really falling away from the breast. If you can hold up your chicken vertically, like this, you should be able to go right through this section with either your knife or your scissor. I'm going to keep continuing on with my knife. All right. See how it's just falling right away? And now we're to this place where there's just this little connective tissue. I might use my scissor on that. Okay, there we go. One leg and thigh are off. We'll turn around and do the same thing on the other side. I can really feel, maybe I will use the scissor this time. I think my knife is not as sharp as I would like it to be. Oh, that's working better with my kitchen shears. Time to get those knives sharpened, apparently. Okay, there. We've got 2 legs and thighs right off the chicken. I think you could stop right here and cook these pieces just the way they are. Sometimes it's easier to serve them this way. It's pretty. And when we go in here to cut the leg and the thigh apart, you lose quite a bit of this skin at the bottom. And the skin really does keep the meat juicy. So I think that this is the better way to cook the leg and the thigh portion, keep it together. But if you do really need to separate these two, there is a knuckle in here as well, and you can just feel it. You feel around at the bottom for the bottom of that chicken leg. And then there's this V in the middle here, and you can feel a tendon that keeps them together. So to break them apart, just come in with your knife and go through until you hit the bone. And I just hit the bone there. So I'm going to peel this back, and I'm going to cut through that skin just so that I don't tear the skin. It's another thing that happens when you're cutting a chicken apart. You end up tearing the skin sometimes. Now if you'll listen, I'm going to crack these 2 things apart. Oh, and we see some. There we go. We see some blood coming out of there. Don't let that bother you. It's just the natural part of a chicken. Take your knife and then just cut right through those 2 pieces. All right, so here we have, this one actually turned out okay because it did have the little flap of skin that stayed with it. So when you go to cook that, set this side down on your pan and you've got nice chicken skin on top. And now you've got your thigh piece as well. Okay, so that's what to do with the chicken thigh and the leg. Now we're left with the breast. Remember I took the wings off before? You've got these little drumettes. It's the bottom portion of the wing. Again, there's not a lot of meat on there. If you wanted to cut them off and put them in the stock pot, you sure could. There's a knuckle here. But I think you end up doing more harm than good. I always end up tearing this skin right here, and I like the fact that it stays together and keeps the chicken breast moist. So I'm going to leave the skin on. Now, my chicken is getting a little wet, and this is where I want the chicken to be dry and my hands to be a little bit more dry because I want to keep this breast skin looking really nice. And the trick to that is to not let the cutting instruments slide around a whole lot. Remember we cut through that bone down here inside? I can come along now with my knife and just cut right through that. It created its own little depression. I don't have to carve around either side of that keel bone. And because my shears are working so well, I'm just going to keep using my shears and keep cutting. There we go. And I'm using my hand underneath. I can feel that blade. I'm guiding it, keeping my finger clear when I do go to cut. But now I'm going to come right up to the wishbone, and it went right through that wishbone because I broke it down to start with. Easy. Look at that. We've got beautiful chicken breasts. These happen to be very large chicken breasts. I think to cook these by themselves is going to require a bit of finesse because they are so large, they're going to dry out up on top before the meat underneath and inside is done. That's one of the hazards with these chickens. I didn't have a whole lot of choice when I went to the store. I think this was a 7-pound whole fryer chicken. The easiest size to cook is a 5 to 6 pound chicken. The breasts are not so thick. And when you have a really thick breast, it tends to dry out. So just word to the wise, if you wanted to take this apart further, you sure could. This would require getting in here with our knife and cutting around this keel bone. You can practice with that. It does take a fair amount of skill, and I don't like to do it because it ends up cutting all the meat. But if you had to, all you do, I'm going to get rid of my other piece of chicken here so you can see what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to come in and loosen up as much as I can underneath the rib and this keel bone so that I don't have to make knife cuts into my chicken. All right, so we're getting there. So now, the cavity that I have created by loosening the meat from the rib cage and the keel bone, I'm going to take and slip my knife into that cavity and just make short little cuts, just to follow those ribs. All right, I'm going to keep going this direction, keep making cuts. And at some point, my knife will slide out the other side. And that's when I know that I'm getting really close to just having pure meat instead of any bone and connective tissue. I'm going to slide my knife right along the board. We're getting there. Look at that. Still have some of this keel bone that will have to come off. But now I can actually take this section of the rib and just start cutting away. And pretty soon, you'll see that your knife tip will come out the other side of the ribs, and then you can just follow it down. There we go. All right, we're getting there. And now I'm just gonna keep slicing away. And I do it very, very slowly so that I don't cut too deeply into the meat. Now there's another bone right here. And it's fairly large, and it's got some sort of sinew or tendon on it. So I'm going to just take my scissor and go right through that. See this white elasticy piece right here? Right there. Best to just use a scissor to snip through that. There we go. I'm gonna keep going around this bone. And I finally got my knife. It just slid right under that bone. I'll just cut down. Okay. Now, we've got another beautiful bone piece. It's got a little bit of meat on it here. Not worth salvaging. What do we do with it? We put it in the stock pot. All right, now we're getting closer to what you might see in the grocery store for an already cut chicken breast. We've got what's left of the keel bone right here. And you can continue to slide your finger underneath it, but I'm actually going to take my knife at this point, slide it in until I can get underneath that piece of cartilage on the other side. There we go. Now, I'm just gonna travel. Whoops, how about if I turn the knife the right way? Travel down that keel bone and take it right off. And I'll turn it around and we'll take the back side off. once your hands get a little slippery, it gets a little difficult to manage these knives. So you just have to be careful and go at it as slowly as you're comfortable with. And I just pulled that out. So there we go. I am going to throw that away. That's not going to cook up real well, so that just goes in the discard pile. Now, the really interesting thing about a chicken breast, the chicken tenders that they love to sell us in the grocery store and mark up the price on it, this is the chicken tender right here. You can see that it just falls away naturally from the breast. If you wanted to continue and just take that chicken tender off, I'm going to use my larger knife. There you go. There's the chicken tender. If you've got kids, this is the thing that they love to eat. Cut it into nuggets, bread it up, put it in the oven, cook it up. They'll love it. All right, so here we have our chicken breast. We've got skin on. You can see the more you take the chicken apart, the harder it is to keep that skin intact. You could stop right here and cook that up. It'll cook a little bit better because now it's sitting more flat on the cooking tray. But the other thing that you could do with this, once you've got it this far, is to take the skin off and create your boneless, skinless chicken breast. It really will just tear right off for you. Give it a little help in a couple spots. This right here is interesting. This was connected to that keel bone. It's probably what they call the oyster. It's very tender. So take that off, and if you're making chicken nuggets, don't throw it away. Use it for chicken nuggets. All right. And there we have a chicken breast. Looks just like what comes in the package at the store. You can cook it this way, or if you're being really economical, or perhaps your appetite isn't big enough for an entire chicken breast this size, one of the best things you can do is split this chicken breast. And then you can do all kinds of things with it. I'm going to get rid of the tender so that you can see what I'm going to do to split this chicken breast. This is where having the longer knife is going to come in handy. It's about the same length as the chicken breast, but I'm going to go this direction with that breast. And I'm going to lay my hand on top just to keep that chicken breast from moving. And I'm going to put my knife about midway through here. And notice that the chicken breast tapers. It gets thinner towards the bottom. So I'm also going to use my hand to let me know that I'm not going too far, because I want this part at the bottom to be cut in half as well. And it's much thinner, so I need to feel my knife going through there. So here we go. I'm just going to take it and cut and just go back and forth. Okay, I'm starting to get to the thinner part. I can feel that with my hand. I'm under the heel of my hand at the moment, so I'm going to move my hand down a little more. And I can tell where my knife is. I don't even have to see the knife. I can tell where that knife is just by feeling it. You can see I'm almost to the end. And boy, I'm coming out darn close to being even Steven at the bottom. Look at that. 2 lovely chicken breasts. And I'm willing to guess that these are probably a 5 to 6 ounce portion, which really is perfectly plenty for a chicken breast. Our chickens are well fed these days, and the breasts are bigger than they used to be. So there's nothing wrong with cutting a chicken breast in half. That is actually the size of chicken breast we used to get in restaurants, but they're about twice as big as they used to be. All right, that's it. I'm going to clean up my hands, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about what to do with this to make a tasty dinner.